You are listening to 98.5 FM Tourism Radio. Our radio station's call letters identification is CKEY FM Radio, the key to local tourism information.
So today we are welcoming Christine Elliott, candidate for PC Leader of Ontario, into our radio station, 98.5 FM here in Barrie. Welcome, Christine, to Barrie and our radio station.
Thank you, Douglas. It's a pleasure to join you.
Just because our audience is interested in the tourism sector, obviously, one of the first questions I'd like to ask you is regarding the Pan Am Games. Could you sort of give your opinion and the party's opinion on the Pan Am Games, budgets, what's going on? Is it worth it? What's your opinion?
I think the idea of the Pan Am Games is great. It really puts a spotlight on our area, but I am concerned about the budget overruns, about the lack of oversight, and some of the security concerns and the transit and transportation issues. So there are a lot of concerns that we have and that we have been raising through Rod Jackson, of course, who was our first critic in that area, and now through Todd Smith. So we're going to continue to hold the government to account to make sure that these games are successful and that they achieve the purpose intended.
The last few years, the tourism marketing in Ontario has been sort of restructured into RTOs, regional tourism organizations. What's your opinion of the effectiveness of these organizations, and how are they working out?
Well, I think the RTOs have the great capacity to be effective in assisting in helping in the tourism industry, but I'm not sure. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement and still a lot of work that has to be done. Some folks have said, it's just more bureaucrats. There's 13 more regions of bureaucrats. Would you have that same opinion? Well, I think what we need to do is make sure that as much money as possible actually goes into assisting in the tourism industry, which is, of course, huge in Ontario and is responsible for $28 billion worth of growth. So whatever we can do to assist in helping the tourism industry, which is important in all parts of the province, we should do, but it should be that actually to going and helping in those areas and not to just feed a bureaucracy. That's the last thing we need in Ontario right now.
The tourism industry, obviously, in Simcoe County and the Barrie area is very important. Important issues with OLG, gaming, casinos, slots. And could you sort of tell the audience and speak to the pros and cons of OLG slots and those issues?
Well, I would have to say that I do have a concern about a government that is really focusing on deriving its revenues from gambling. I think that we need to make sure that we have good economic base and we don't have to rely on that as a source of income and growth. But I also recognize that there are many communities that are welcome hosts for casinos and gambling facilities, and for those communities, and I believe they should be allowed to make their own decisions about what's best for their community and how to best support that industry within their community.
Could you sort of, obviously you had some good news today on February the 4th. A competitor now supports you. Obviously, you've got Bill Davis's support. It doesn't get better than that. Could you speak to the recent changes today in the race, the leadership race?
Sure. Well, today I was very pleased to be with my friend and colleague Vic Fideli, who announced that he is no longer a leadership contender and has decided to support me and has endorsed my candidacy for leadership of the PC party. So I'm tremendously happy about that, of course, and also honored because Vic is a very serious contender, or was. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience from the private sector, which is invaluable. He has been an entrepreneur and a former mayor of North Bay and served our party with great distinction as both energy and finance critics.
So he brings that experience to the table, and of course, as a proud Northerner, he wants to expand the possibilities for people in the North. So I welcome his input, and I'm very, very happy that he's joined our team.
And obviously, with Bill Davis's support for your candidacy, can you share with the audience any advice he gave you or has given you?
Well, I'm really honored by Premier Davis's support and endorsement. As you would probably know, he was at my campaign launch with me, and he has been very much a mentor to me as I've been pursuing this the PC party leadership. His style is one that I would very much like to emulate. That he has always been very consensus-based, speaking with his colleagues who don't always agree with him, to form good, solid public policy, and that I think is really important as a leader, to not just surround yourself with people that have the same point of view as you, but to make sure that you hear from people with the full diversity of opinion on any particular topic, to make sure that you make good decisions and good policy at the end of the day. A leader has to make the final decision, but I think where consensus can be found, that's so much the better, because that makes everybody feel that they're part of the process and having input. But sometimes if you have to make a contrary decision, at least you know what the difference of opinion is, and you can make decisions around that. So I think also Premier Davis has said to me that you don't always have to argue with the other parties just for the sake of it, that sometimes it's necessary to work with other parties to achieve the goals of people in the province. And so I think you have to be very strategic and don't go looking for fights, to try and work with people in a collegial manner. If that doesn't work, of course, stand up for your beliefs and what you think is right. But it's a question of trying to work with everyone and trying to find solutions for the real problems that Ontarians are facing.
What differentiates your leadership credentials from the other candidates in the leadership race? What would be the main bullet points that differentiates your campaign?
I think what it comes down to is a question of experience. Ontario is in a very deep economic hole right now, and I believe that we need someone that has had experience outside of government in order to help form some of the solutions. So I had the experience of practicing law for about 25 years before I was elected to public office. And I also had the chance to work with one of Canada's major banks on their international audit committee. So I have seen the global economic picture as well as that of Ontario's. And I think that's really important as people prepare to select a leader and ultimately a premier of the province. And I would say in addition to that, I've had the life experience working as a volunteer in my community over many years. I've served as the chair of our community mental health and addictions agency, as well as our children's treatment center. And I've seen the real problems a lot of people face that have children with special needs or are facing mental health and addictions problems. And I've spent many years thinking of solutions for that. That's why I got involved in politics in the first place, is to stand up for vulnerable people and to be a voice for people who don't have a voice. And I think those are qualities that a leader needs to have, and experiences that you need to know about in order to make good decisions. So I think that's what would primarily differentiate me from some of the other people in the race. That's why I'm asking for people's support.
Contrary to popular opinion, Patrick Brown he doesn't own Barrie. And obviously he sort of started to go negative last week. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, I would say, first of all, I'm very pleased to be visiting Barrie, because I want to go to all parts of the province to speak about my vision for Ontario and why I'm running for leader. And so that's why I'm coming today to meet with people in Barrie to do that. But I would say that what I'm really focusing on is not being negative to any other leadership candidates, but to really focus on building our party up, making sure that we all move together. We're all on the same page so that we can turn our sights to defeating the Liberals in 2018. So that's what I'm focusing on in my campaign and what I'll be talking about until May 9th.
Provincially, how would your leadership and government revitalize the tourism sector in Ontario? What would be the bullet points that you would enact in policy and stimulus? What would you do to enhance the tourism sector?
Well, first I think we need to make sure that we all recognize the importance of the tourism industry and how vast it is across the entire province, and then work with the tourism operators to find out what they need in order to realize the full potential in their geographic area. And that's, of course, going to vary from place to place. One size doesn't fit all, and so what might work in Timmins may well not work in Barrie, and might not work in my area of Whitby-Oshawa either. So you have to work with the operators and people involved in tourism in the various geographic areas to come up with local solutions.
And one of the assets that the people of Ontario own is obviously the 401, 400 series highway gas centers, service centers, and those are currently administered by the En Route organization. What's your opinion of that arrangement? It was some people would call it a sweetheart deal for 50 years. It seems a little long without renegotiating that.
Well, yes, I would agree with you. It does seem a little long, and at the end of the day, we need to make sure that they're being operated efficiently and that local areas are allowed to promote the various attractions within their local area. So we need to make sure that there is equity and fairness there, and to make sure that they are being operated in the best interest of the taxpayers of the province.
2 en route gas stations within our broadcast range. The one existing in Barrie right at the moment, and the one on the southbound lanes in Innisfil that will be completed shortly also. So we are interested in at least getting signage possibilities with those en route gas stations.
Well, that would certainly make sense to me.
Well, hopefully I'll draw on your support then on that.
All right.
Could you, the toll 407, another bone of contention, I guess, for some folks traveling in tourism and commuters. Was the 407 a good deal for Ontarians, and could it be improved? What is your thoughts on the 407 deal?
Well, ultimately, the idea of the 407 is a very good idea. We need to have different routes other than just the 401, and coming from Whitby-Oshawa, I can tell you that we're really looking forward to the extension of the 407 eastbound over to Highway 35-115. But I think that it's fair to say that the original deal could probably have been drawn up in a better manner with a few more safeguards to the taxpayer. But it is what it is, and we just have to learn from that and make sure that as the next extension of the highway is completed, that a very good deal is negotiated for people who are going to be using this highway on a regular basis and the taxpayers of Ontario.
What's the campaign trail like? You have a pretty grueling schedule. Looks like you're doing like 2 or 3 events a day. How are you keeping up with that, and how's your energy level holding up?
Well, it's a very busy time on the road right now, of course, trying to get to all parts of the province, and I was in Northern Ontario a couple of weeks ago, Eastern Ontario last week, and now more in Central Ontario this week. But it's very good. I'm getting a great reception wherever I'm going, and it's really interesting for me to meet people in different parts of the province and understand a little bit better about regional interests and concerns. All important information to know in order to make sure that we make good decisions together and take into account the priorities of people across the province.
I understand that the voting process in May for the leadership is based on electoral votes, so it's more you have to win riding by riding association, I suppose. Is that how do you feel about that voting process? And
well, I think it's very democratic. Of course, in our party, we're the only party that actually does directly elect our leader. So anyone who purchases a membership in the party before February 28th has the opportunity to vote in May, and there will be a local voting place in each of the 107 ridings, and each riding carries 100 points. So that means every riding is in play and has equal importance. And I think that's very good, so that no one area has a disproportionate influence. So I think it's the best solution possible and the most democratic. And but it also means that you need to connect with people across the province and understand their concerns and priorities, and speak to them about your vision and ask for their support. So that's what I'm going to continue to do right up until May 9th.
So a candidate, you have to win the 51% of the majority of ridings. Then,
that's right. It's a preferential ballot, so people will rank their choices 1 through 4 now, and then the person who is fourth on the first ballot will drop off, and their second ballot support will then be allocated amongst the remaining candidates until someone gets 50% plus 1. So we'll see what happens, but we're working very hard and trying to reach as many people as we can.
And is that vote electronic vote, or is it a paper ballot vote at the individual ridings?
It is going to be a paper ballot vote at each of the individual ridings. And then all of the ballot boxes after the general vote on May 7th will be shipped to the Toronto Congress Centre, where the announcement of the winner will be made on the 9th. So it's an exciting time for the party, but also an exciting time for anybody that wants to get involved politically to have a direct impact on who our next leader will be and ultimately premier.
But if you just wanted to say a few closing remarks to voters and the public and PC members and new PC members in the city of Barrie, why Christine Elliott?
Well, I'm very honored to be involved in this race, and I am concerned, though, about the state of Ontario's economy, and that's why I'm getting involved in this race, to make sure that all of us and our children and grandchildren can have opportunities to find work here in the province and to stay in the province. I also believe that I have the skills, the experience, and skills necessary to bring our party together and to allow us to form government and bring Ontario back economically. That's a priority for all of us, and I would welcome anyone who wants to join my team to connect with me at christineelliott.ca. We would love to have you join us.
And that's Christine Elliott with 2 L's and 2 T's. 2 T's.
That's right.
Oh, and well, thank you very much. I thank you very much for visiting our station today, and we look forward to the leadership race. And CKEY 98.5 FM wishes you all the success in this race for the leadership of the party. Thank you very much for coming today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Douglas.
Thank you.
Welcome to our town. You want to know what to do, what to see, where to go. Tune into Tourist Radio. What's going on? Tourist Radio.
For FM 98.5,